Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob, and today I have 3 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and let's jump right in. This story comes to us from MD Lapla. Professor is forced to a speech, complies to the max. Back when I was in high school a long time ago, whenever an important date approached, Independence Day, etc., we would line up in the courtyard and would have to be standing still as in formation, and one of the teachers would do a speech about the date and the importance of it. Those speeches would usually be around 10 to 15 minutes long, about as long as it was humanly possible to keep 150 teenagers lined up and standing still on formation and listening, and the teacher doing the speech would rotate amongst all the faculty, and since there were quite a few teachers, each teacher was due around once a year or less than that. There was one notable omission on the teacher's roster. The mechanography teacher, this would age the post really well I guess, never did a speech. Never. Let's call him Mech. He would always refuse and get away with it for whatever reason. In around 30 or so years teaching at the school, it became famous that he never did a speech. Until this one day when I guess the dean got out of bed on his wrong foot or whatever, and he absolutely demanded Mech to do the speech. There was no way to get away with it. Mech would have to do it. His first speech in 30 or so years at the school. Even some of the faculty, former students of Mech themselves, were excited to see the outcome of this power struggle between Mech and the dean. So we lined up at the courtyard, 150 students, 15 to 20 teachers, etc., etc. And Mech took the stand and the mic with, definitely, a smirk of malicious compliance in his face. And he delivered. More than 45 minutes of an absolutely drowsing speech, telling every single minute detail and fact about the date in question. For the students, it was destruction, having to stand still and silent for almost an hour. Failing to do so was one of the most punishable offenses. Trying not to fall asleep on our feet. The dean tried to stop Mech twice. The first time, Mech just completely ignored the dean. The second time, Mech just plainly told the dean, "You wanted me to do the speech? Deal with it," for the whole audience to listen. Around 30 to 35 minutes, some of the older I don't give an F anymore students started shouting things at Mech. Not hurtful things, but colorful commentaries about the speech. We started laughing. Mech carried on as if nothing happened. Dean tried to take the stand to demand silence. Mech denied the dean, saying, "I'm not finished yet." That day, we lost probably 1.5 hours of teaching time. We ended up hating Mech for the torture he put us through. When he finished, the dean had no choice but to give us a short, unscheduled break before returning to class. Over the years, I realized what an absolute masterpiece of malicious compliance Mech delivered. Mech never did a speech again at the school. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Bouquet of Dogs. It says, "Well, at least he made sure he only had to do the speech once. Definitely worthwhile putting in some effort, laugh out loud." By the way, what kind of punishment would one of the most punishable offenses consist of? I'm not sure if I really want to know, but I'm too darn curious. OP responded to this one and said, "The school had a point system for punishment. You would get like yellow cards that had a number of points. So a minor offense might be no points up to 1 to 2 points. The most they ever gave on a single punishment was usually 5. There were probably exceptionally bad behaviors that tallied more, I don't remember. Disrespecting or misbehaving during one of these situations was usually 5. 15 points and you failed the year. The whole year." Okay, number 1, Professor Mech is an awesome person. They pulled off some great malicious compliance with that extra long speech. Very well done. OP, this school seems really strict. And I did read a little bit further down into the comments on this one and found out that OP went to an all-male Christian school, so that makes a little bit more sense now. This story comes to us from Savage Jimmy 85. "All orders must be connected within 3 days or escalate? Sure thing, boss." I used to manage the activations department for an ISP. I wouldn't say I managed the team, as my style is they worked with me, not for me. I was simply the department's leader. For some context, the company had been growing for quite some time, but unfortunately not hiring enough staff to cover the growth. I started in the support department before being moved to this position after the entire old activations team quit. Due to the small world it is in the ISP space in my country, I'll keep things a little vague. Some background is required. The old team of 3 plus the manager used to have one person work on the oldest tickets in their queue, plus 2 on the newest tickets to keep things moving, being interrupted by calls, walk-ups, and messages. The manager would handle billing and cancellations. The same ticket would often get handled by multiple agents in a day, often the same agent multiple times too. Almost every day they were all doing unpaid overtime. We're all salaried employees, to handle the spillover from support throughout the night. When they quit, they had about 1,000 order tickets. Complaints were common but not outrageous. I knew that was unsustainable given the growth and acquisitions. By the time this story is relevant, we had over 3,000 tickets and almost no complaints, with the same number of less experienced staff. To put that number in a little more perspective, that was 2 to 3 times as many tickets as every other department combined. We made many changes over the time, and I became an expert in the back end of the ticketing system. But the biggest change was we changed our workflow to a priority system, and everything now had a due date. All new tickets had a due date of the day they came in. If the customer wanted their connection on a different date and the pre-check showed no tech was required, that became the new due date. If a tech was needed, the appointment became the due date. If the customer emailed us against their ticket or any update happened to the ticket, the due date changed automatically from whatever it was to today, so we could be across the developments, as customer request dates and tech dates could be months into the future. Suddenly, the age of the ticket didn't matter, just the due date, and this reduced so much double handling, and customer updates were responded to quickly, and calls dropped significantly. Now, stick with me as all of this becomes relevant. My priorities were handle the cancellations and billing. When done, I followed the same priority as the team unless I was in meetings. The team's priorities were, oversimplified, 1. Get new orders and relocations vetted, text booked, and set applicable due dates. 2. Activate the completed orders or update the customer, tech, and due date if there were issues. 3. Important. Escalate overdue orders and follow up escalations, due date. 4. Activate voice orders. 5. Finally, everything else that was due today. It became a well-oiled machine. The escalations were maybe 0.5 to 1% of our orders. As we had so few complaints and typically raving positive reviews from our customers, the general manager didn't really understand how we worked or the depth of the changes that made us so efficient. My daily report was usually skipped in the end-of-day meetings as we had minimal issues. He focused on the other departments. The way we worked now meant that tech issues or appointment issues were also escalated and resolved quickly, as nothing slipped through the cracks anymore. The internet wholesaler worked really well with us as we set clear expectations with our customers, and we always had great data to back up the escalation process. Our most remote customers who had to wait long times for techs completely understood. Usually, a tech was taking a chartered bush flight out there, followed by some off-road driving to get to the customer to get a satellite internet connection installed. These customers were often hundreds of kilometers from the nearest town and understood the logistics that would be involved and the waiting periods. Very rarely was this an issue. On to the story. Now, while we had so many orders coming in, we had just as many, usually more some days, customers canceling their services. Largely due to the long support wait times or poor quality support response emails. This meant the general manager was panicking about our record, showing we were losing customers to the board and shareholders. In front of everyone, he had a massive yelling fit directed at me about the company's negative growth. And this was my fault, and I need to have every customer connected within 3 days or else we escalate it. We have too many orders not connected. No more excuses from the wholesaler. Did I mention they were great and moved heaven and earth for us? Escalating these and getting them connected was our #1 priority. Follow them up daily. He's had enough of my team slacking off, etc. Everyone's jaws around me dropped. They knew we weren't perfect, but we were the smoothest running department in the company. I saw red and took a breath. That's fine. Cue malicious compliance. After that public dressing down, I immediately sent him an email confirming what he just said. I got it back in writing. Texts take longer than 3 days. Those orders and escalations become our #1 priority. He didn't say business days, so I sat with my team and informed them that our ticket queue is going to be in a world of hurt, but we need to make it clear to him that he doesn't understand how we work, what we do, and that the way he spoke about us was inappropriate. They are not to stress about the numbers. They are not to do unpaid overtime. I don't care that they are on a salary. Salary accounts for reasonable overtime, and this is not reasonable. They are to end work when their shift ends. Do not accept time off in lieu. Only accept paid overtime. I will take the fallout. They aren't paid to be stressed. Most days, we have to work on about 300 tickets total, and today was a Friday. Customer not getting connected until Tuesday, well, that's 4 days. Escalate. Customers' roads impassable due to floods, so tech has to wait for dry weather? Too bad. Escalate. We escalated about 50 new orders that day, which meant Monday, we had the usual weekend and Monday orders plus those 50. That day, over 100 new orders were escalated, plus the 50 followed up. So our queue reflected we had about 450 tickets due. Less than a third of the new connections got connected, even though a tech wasn't needed. Next day, the same thing, except only a handful of orders got connected. Now we had 600 tickets overdue. By Thursday, support's being hammered by people asking about their connections. Overdue tickets hit the thousands. Wait times blew out, orders got cancelled, complaints got raised. Come the next Monday, the support managers were screaming at me to get my department in order. I directed them to the general manager. A meeting was called with all department managers over the current state of the business they found themselves in. When I was asked what was going on, I simply pointed to the email, referenced the dressing down my team got, and informed him I was simply following orders. That's ridiculous. Use your brain. You should know what should be escalated. I pointed out that I thought I did, right up until you screamed at me in front of the entire company and belittled me and my team. You made it clear I have no idea what I'm doing, and to do what you say. He informed me to go back to the way we operated, and he will review my workflows in detail at a later date. I tried to say it won't be that simple. We need to follow the escalations through with wholesale. Getting our queue back in order will take weeks. He wasn't having it. No, the new orders were our #1 priority again. Get people connected. I again moved to object, but another angry outburst informing me to do as he says. Cue malicious compliance round 2, and another follow-up email confirming. We stopped following up the escalations as we had too many new order tickets to process. By the end of the week, the wholesaler called an emergency meeting with the company board, a meeting I was not a part of. They were threatening to pull our wholesale agreement due to the escalated orders not in line with their matrix, and we had inundated their staff also. Not only that, we were no longer keeping up our end of the bargain following them up. This wholesaler was where a significant majority of our customers were fed from. After this meeting finished, I was pulled from my seat to explain myself to the board, emails prepared, and with the support and sales managers with me for support and as witnesses, I explained the above. I was cleared to leave. The fallout. My team and I were given a blank check for overtime to get us back in order. Unfortunately, no other staff from any other team could assist in a meaningful way. But my team were only too happy to put in as many hours of paid overtime the workplace laws would allow. The company also supplied dinners. It ended up taking us over 6 weeks to undo the damage the general manager had caused with the overtime. The wholesaler also reduced the remuneration we got paid as they no longer considered us a top-tier ISP. My reports were no longer skimmed, and the general manager sat with me often to understand how we worked, and complimented me on the innovations from my team's suggestions. He also didn't order me around like that again, but more asked for input before making recommendations. We also did get our top-tier ranking back eventually. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called W1987G. It says, having to explain twice to the board why the people below him sucked, and their major wholesaler threatening to drop because of his direct actions, I am shocked that the dude still had his job. OP responded to this one and said, I wondered often, given how the other departments ran too. He had his good qualities, sometimes, but he was very much a work harder, not smarter kind of person to those below him. I was one of the few managers who didn't follow that ethos. I love managers who come in to micromanage everything when they really don't have a grasp on the business that they're managing. I really do think that managers should spend some time in the positions that they're managing, otherwise they can't manage it effectively. I hope the GM can now look at your team and understand what you do, and maybe just take a step back and let you do what you do, because obviously it was working before. But I have a feeling it's not gonna go that way. This story comes to us from Colt Kun. Gonna call the cops over a toilet? Sure, enjoy signing off that OT. So, Florida passed the crappy bathroom law saying people must use the correct bathroom as listed on their birth certificate. I'm non-binary, had some medical issues when I was young that were ignored by doctors and resulted in my reproductive organs and some intestine being removed. Then I paid to remove more stuff because why not? Eliminate a cancer threat. But I'm not on HRT, just generally very androgynous looking now. I don't really care what pronouns people use for me, and my wife switches based on which is funniest at the moment. At work, they told us they were enforcing the law strictly, and staff wouldn't just be disciplined, they'd get the police called on them. Note, there is one gender-neutral bathroom in our building in the admin offices. You have to be buzzed in. Once they leave the office, you have to call a facilities person to let you in, and security has to watch you. They're very big on enforcing a status around here. I got reported for using the wrong restroom, despite that it does conform with the gender on my birth certificate. I don't really mind which restroom I use, and in the past used whatever was available because I have IBS and use the bathroom frequently due to the aforementioned surgery. This just goes to show how effed up this law is and how it's going to discriminate entirely on appearance. I was told I was reported, and I pointed out I was following the law. Didn't get in any trouble, but they said, well, I need to be mindful of what others perceive. Cue my compliance. I have exclusively started using the admin restroom, wasting multiple people's times. I press the buzzer and make someone let me in. I have already lodged a complaint about the time it took someone to answer and how withholding access to a bathroom could be an OSHA violation. I make sure to go after admin hours so security and facilities have to come up and report it, and I plan to complain anytime I wait more than 5 minutes for them to arrive. When we close and I'm on the floor, I say that I can't check and clear any of the restrooms, so the manager on duty has to find another person and stop their closing duties to do the other, because I helpfully remind them they can't check both or we have to call the police on them. Many of my coworkers are enjoying this and are supportive and doing the same at close. It helps that we are now getting 15 minutes overtime due to closing. Our clock rounds to the nearest 15 and it applies to everyone in the building, so 20 people worth of overtime a day, it adds up. After confronting me on why I'm using their bathroom, a member of admin said that they're now looking into how they can change our existing bathrooms to be gender neutral. I said, great, but I'm still going to use this one until then. Some other coworkers have said they're going to do the same. Still a crappy law, but with enough annoyance, I may be able to at least change our district. OP added an edit down below. It says edit because some of this has come up a lot. If you're confused or angry or want to tell me you're either a man or a woman, go in the right bathroom, please reread because your comprehension sucks. I did, and got reported because someone thinks I don't look the way I should to use said bathroom. You can look at my profile picture and see that I don't adhere to either gender stereotypes naturally. I did not pursue any action against the reporter, because if they reported me out of genuine concern, then it's pointless, and the problem is the law and establishment. And if they reported me because they're transphobic or malicious, then anything I do won't change their mind. And to be honest, I don't care to gain a rep for witch hunting, just for being annoying. I love our facility guys, and they seem to find it funny to break into admin offices. Security seems mostly annoyed that they have to stand and watch a hallway leading to locked offices instead of watching it on cameras from their booth. Hopefully, we get gender-neutral bathrooms, not just for staff, but our patrons as well. My wife is amazing. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called a midget named Greg. It says, as a person with Crohn's, you could get a letter from your doctor and really start pushing your weight around using the ADA. If there's one thing companies should never mess with, that's the ADA. OP responded to this one and said, I'm planning to. Just make this as big a nightmare as I can while sweetly smiling and saying I'm compliant. And another one replied down below that saying, make sure to have documentation, lots of it. Now, most of you know I have been pushing the documentation thing on here for years now, because you have no proof unless it's in writing or on video. And your word against somebody else's word just isn't going to cut it. Document everything you can to cover your own butt. OP, I'm pretty sure you're going to get your gender-neutral bathroom soon, and that will be a better situation for everyone involved.